Welcome back everyone to my channel. My name is Oluwaseun and it's an honor to have you all here. In continuation of our hands-on project leveraging GitLab CI/CD, just to recap, so far we have looked at the front-end service, which is written in the Go programming language. We've seen the pipeline construct. We have also looked at the CAD service. We've also seen the pipeline construct for that. That is written in the C# programming language. And in the last video, we looked at the currency service, which is written in the Node.js, programming language. Now, in this video, we want to look at two of the other services, the email and the ad service. So the email is written in Python, the ad service is written in Java, and I want to try as much as possible for us to look at both services in this video. All right, so that by the time we are done with all the services, we can actually now, set up our EKS cluster and deploy these images to it and see how that goes. All right, so in today's video we're going to be looking at the email service. We want to look at the pipeline construct, and of course we're going to look at the ad service as well. So without delaying us anymore, let's get into the email service. Now, this is the email service, and of course this is the pipeline construct for that. Now, I did say in the last video that if you look at the pipeline that we've been using, the CI pipeline that we've been using, it's similar. The difference basically is that, we're dealing with different programming languages, and of course the commands therefore will be different, because the command you're going to use to build a Node.js application is obviously going to be different from the one you're going to be used to build a Java application, because they all have different package managers. All right, the package manager for Python is pip. The package manager for Node.js is npm or yarn. The package manager for Java, you can either use Maven, Gradle, or even Hands. All right, so those are the differences that exist, and that's why you cannot use a single pipeline for all of the services because of the programming language, all right, involved. Now, for the Python, we have Python 3.12. That's the Python version that we're using, and of course, if you look at a construct, it's somewhat similar to what we've seen before. Nothing is new here. The only thing that is new is that now we have a different command, all right, entirely to build, to test, all right, our Python application. And so here we have about 7 different stages as well. So we have the build, the test, the security, the sonar, the package, the update Helm, and of course the trigger job that would trigger, all right, the Helm project as well. So if you look at what we have here, we're familiar with cache already, so I don't need to go into that again. So I'm just going to jump right into the build job. So if you look at the build job, we're basically leveraging the Python image, right? So Python 3.12, of course, we're leveraging the Alpine image, which is lightweight. And of course, here we have some before scripts to make sure that it's available. Now here we have the GCC, G++. These are dependencies that are needed in order for us to be able to build this application using Python. All right, and so we have to put that in the before script section. All right, so that these will have been executed before we execute the actual, all right, script, the actual script. Now, the way we were able to find out about these, dependencies actually has to do with the code itself. If you go through the Python code that we have here, all right, you're going to see that the code depends on, some of these things and all that. So if you go to the requirement.txt, for example, in the requirement.txt, you basically would see all of the dependencies that the application needs in order to function as appropriate. And of course, in Python, how you manage your dependencies and your packages is by using the requirement.txt file. So this file is what your pip will read and then install all of the requirements for you, and then that becomes a part of your application and it makes the application, all right, usable. So if you look at all this, these are all the dependencies, all right, that are needed in order for us to build these, all right, application. And of course, in order for us to, do the Python build within the pipeline, we needed to install all of these, files and dependencies as well. And of course, we needed to create a virtual environment, all right, that our Python application is going to run inside of, okay? And that's why we need all of these, all right here. And of course, we're using the source dot basically would allow that, virtual environment to be made available in the current runtime, all right, environment, right? So that Python and pip, command can actually run and function without any kind of issue. And then, of course, we have the script, which is the pip install. And then, of course, we'll also have to install the requirement. So here we have the pip, do the pip install, and then that installs the requirement, the txt. So everything here will be installed using the pip install. And then, of course, we have an artifact that we want to, store. And of course, basically that would allow the subsequent jobs to use that. And then here we have the rules. So this is going to work in the merge request event pipeline. So we don't need to do that again when we merge into the main branch, all right? And so the same thing here as well. So we don't have any test, file or any test job, within the code. So we're just basically, creating a mock, of that, just to see that. Normally you should have, some test Python file that basically will test your application, for some functionalities and all, but we don't have any. So we're just basically simulating that. And then for security, Python has a package called safety that we can actually use to scan our Python application for, if there are any issues or errors, vulnerabilities that can be exploited in the dependency or in the file. We can basically leverage this tool called safety. So if you go to to Python and then you go to PIP, I think the name of the site is pypi.org. So here, if I type safety, I should see this one. So here, you can see that the last updated was July 9th, 2025. So if I click here, and then of course here, it says that this application can scan dependencies for non-vulnerabilities, all right, and licenses. So it's actually a very good tool that you can use to scan your Python application for any kind of, errors in the dependencies that it uses, okay? And when we talk about dependencies, we're basically talking about, everything that you have here, because everything you have here are the things that are the dependencies that your application actually relies on for its, full functionality and effectiveness, okay? And so this tool can actually be used to perform that scan, so vulnerability scanning for secure Python development, okay? So you can use that. So that's what we have here. So safety scan, of course, the output will be in JSON. And another thing here is that we are storing that output as a SAST, all right, job. Okay, in GitLab, you have what you call the SAST vulnerability report. The only thing here is that this SAST vulnerability report is not something that we can visualize in the dashboard because we do not have the ultimate, all right, GitLab subscription. So for those who work in an organization and then you're leveraging GitLab CI/CD, of course, if you have the ultimate, subscription plan, then you'll be able to visualize your SAST vulnerability report because GitLab has what you call a vulnerability management dashboard where you can see, all the vulnerabilities that are, everything that happens within your CI/CD pipeline, you can publish those reports to the vulnerability management, all right, platform within your GitLab, all right, CI. But of course, if you're using the free version like I am using, you won't be able to have access to that report. So you can push it there and you can also download it, right? So here we have the path specified, so that will allow us to download that file, while at the same time it also can be viewed in the vulnerability management, right, platform as well. So here also, this is also going to run in the merge request pipeline event. And again, we have a Sonar here, all right? And of course, we're using the same Python version. And here we're using the Sonar, the OpenJDK 21. That's what we're using here, all right? Because, this particular image supports that, all right? For some image, if you look at some of the previous, job we've built, some of the pipelines we've looked at together, you would realize that for some we used OpenJDK 17, and that's because the image that we're using didn't support the installation of OpenJDK 21. And so if we wanted to work around that, there would have been a lot of, tweak here and there that we'll have had to do. And so that's why we just, maintained OpenJDK 17, since it's still kind of relevant, right? So, but here we're using OpenJDK 21. And we're using the Sonar Scanner 6.21 here, which is an improvement upon the 5 point that we used in the previous video, all right? And pretty much the Sonar Scanner command is still the same, all right? If you go to your SonarCube and then we look at that service, this is the service here. If you look at this service, and we go to administration analysis method, if we click here, all right, we can see, and I choose Python here, right? So this is Python. Basically, it gives us the same thing. So here you can actually use the Sonar scanner source, CLI out of the box, but I mean, you can also use the Python image as well, and then install, your Sonar scanner using the apt-get update and apt-get install, on that image, and then use that. So I mean, it's still the same thing that it will give us. And then of course we have the Sonar properties right here, the organization, the URL, the token, and all this kind of stuff, right? So here I can as well just remove this part to say the Sonar job should run, when a merge request event occurs. So that would reduce the amount of pipeline we'll have to build when we merge into the main branch, all right? The amount of jobs that we'll have to run when we merge into, all right, the main branch. Is that okay? And of course, we shouldn't forget to remove this part, because since the Sonar job is not going to be running in the main branch, so we can just remove that. And of course, we have all of this. Now, we need to update the tags for all of these jobs, because we're using our own instance now, all right? So we need to update that. So here, I'm just going to basically, do that. We have AWS, that's the name. If you watched the previous video, you basically understand, all right, what I'm doing. But if you have not watched the previous video, I'll encourage you to check out those videos, all right, so that you can understand all of this, all right? So here, I'm basically with a tag. And what I'm doing basically is to just say that my pipeline is going to run, all right, on, a self-hosted runner that has these tags, okay? So by the time I deploy this job, right, it's going to look for a runner within my environment that has these two tags, and then that's where my job will be executed, okay? So that's the purpose of what we're doing right here. And the reason we're doing this is because, like I mentioned in the previous video, I have exhausted the free compute minute that was allocated to me for this particular month that I'm recording. All right. So, I mean, if I want to use the shared runner provided to us by GitLab CI, then I have to wait for another month in order to do that. But of course, I can't wait for that, because I needed to record and put this, all right, information out there. Okay. All right, so that's the reason we're doing this, okay? So we just basically have to do that. So this one, I'm going to change that to AWS. That's the tag given to the runner. All right, and of course, we'll do the same thing for this one as well. Tags along. All right. And so this does not need, we've already talked about that, so we don't need to put anything here. So we can just leave that as is. So now what I'm going to do is to commit, all right, and then let's see the pipeline run, and we'll go from there. So before we commit this, let's basically, we need to check project. So this is the project. We need to go to settings, CI/CD. And we need to go to runners and see. Now the runner is not enabled for the project here, so we need to enable that for the project. All right, and those tags that you saw me, had are basically what I have here. So these two tags, right? And of course, if you had only one, right, there would be your job might not be, the runner might not pick up the job, okay? So you have to, if you have 3, 4, 5 tags, then you need to specify all of those tags in order for the runner to pick up your jobs, okay? So that's why we have to specify AWS and Docker, all right, for this. So let's get back here. So I'm going to say git commit now. All right, so just basically going to say building the email service. All right, so we're pushing that to the repo. All right, so we'll push that to the repo. Let's click on the repo. Of course, it will expect us to create a merge request. So we're going to click on create merge request. And then basically the same process we've been following. We'll create a merge request. and that should trigger, all right, a pipeline. So you can see that the pipeline has been triggered. And so we have the build, the test, the security, and also, and then of course we can see the dependencies as well, right? So you can see that this depends. So the Sonar does not depend on this too, but we could actually configure that as well to say, these two jobs must run before the Sonar job runs. So we can configure that dependencies as well. So, all right, so I'm just going to wait for this to run its course, and once it's done, of course, we'll come back, look at the logs, and then of course we merge into the main branch. There you go. The 4 job completed successfully in 4 minutes and 14 seconds. All right, so we can just click on the jobs and see what happens. So we can see here that, I mean, everything worked as expected. The job succeeded. All right, we can see the downloads happening here. If we look at the test job as well, of course, we don't expect anything in the test job because, I mean, it was just a mock. All right. And then, of course, if you go to security as well, you should see some, all right. So some scans were carried out. It says unhandled extensions, end of file when reading a line. All right. So there was some, end of file issue right there. It says security vulnerability found, but continuing. We did that because we didn't want to fail, all right, the pipeline. So that's why we did that. And then for the Sonar job, that also executed successfully as well, right? So if we go to the Sonar project now, and we click here, we will see the merge request. And of course, we can see this is 2 minutes ago. If we click on that, we might not see much, right? Because, like I said, it's just, it's a free version we're using. So certain things are not visible to us. All right, but I believe you get the idea of what we're trying to do. Okay, so that is the job here. And of course, like I told us, if I go to the merge request, for example, and I click here, I would see here that, security scan have run and there seems to be some issue, but I mean, it's not something that we can actually see. It says new vulnerabilities are vulnerabilities that the security scan detects in the merge request that are different to existing vulnerability in the different branch. All right, but we can't see that because, I mean, we need to have the ultimate subscription in order for us to, see the visual and of course all the errors or the vulnerabilities that were found out. Okay, but unfortunately we don't have that. So what you have an idea, when you get into a workplace and you have this, you know exactly what a SAST, vulnerability report look like and how to generate one. So that's why we are putting all of these in this video. And right here as well, you can also see a SonarCloud analysis and all. All right, even from here, even if you don't go to the SonarCloud space, you can visualize the summary of the findings even from right here. So let's merge this into the main branch. So that will build the Docker image. And of course, that should update the Helm project as well with the new image, all right, tag. So we're just going to wait for this again to do its thing. And then, of course, we'll come back once this is done. There you go, guys. You can see here we have the Docker build, Docker build and push completed. As we can see from here, I mean, everything was completed. All right. So the Helm project was also updated, right? If you look at this one, the Helm project was updated as well. And of course, after the updates, the pipeline, the Helm project pipeline was triggered from what we can see right here. So you can see we can see the Helm link and the Helm package, all right, being triggered. Okay. And of course, if you go to the Helm project now, you should see that, there should be a merge request. So if I go to this particular branch, I can see now that there's a merge request because, I mean, that commit that we did from the email service to this particular project, of course, will trigger a merge request because, I mean, there was an update. So if you look at it, this was updated 1 minute ago, right? So there was an update right there. Okay. And of course, the pipeline was triggered and it passed, right? And we can see that it was triggered by an upstream job. Okay, to basically do the Helm link and the Helm package to be sure that what was committed was okay, so that in case there's any error, we can, can report that back. All right, and of course we can see the commit here, update email service image to this. So that's the new, all right, image tag. Okay, so that's the goal right there. And of course, if I go back to think deploy and I go to container registry, all right, and I come right here, I can see the new image tag. So this was pushed 2 minutes ago, and I can see the tag, all right here as well. Okay, so that is for the email service. So now let's look at the ad service. Like I told us, it's pretty much the same process. The only difference that we have here is just, the languages are different, and the build commands certainly will be different as well. So let's take a look at this Java, the ad service, so that we can, complete the whole image build in this video. And then in the next video, we'll walk us through the process of setting up our EKS, all right, cluster. Okay, so that we can actually deploy our application. So we're done with this one. So we can actually come here to this, the M repo. Let's create a merge request. So let's take that out very quickly. And then let's merge into the main branch. All right, of course, that's not going to trigger another pipeline because the pipeline already ran and it succeeded anyways. All right, so the only thing we're just going to do here is to merge into, all right, the main branch. Of course, the main branch is not going to be triggered because the two jobs we have there are jobs that should be triggered on, all right, manually. Okay, so that's why it's just going to skip, all right, those jobs. And of course, we don't have an EKS cluster yet, so there's no point, triggering those jobs. All right, so let's look at the ad service now, and let's see, all right, what that gives us. Okay, so this is the ad service. The ad service is it's written in Java, and this is what the pipeline looks like for the ad service. I'm going to close this one and open up this. So this is the ad service. It's written in Java, and it was, the build tool that was used is Gradle. Now, of course, you can use Maven and all to also build your jobs. But in this particular case, went with Gradle. And so that's exactly what we want to look at together, all right, today. Now here we have all the global variables defined as usual, and we have about, just 6 jobs here. We don't have the security job here, so we have 6 jobs. So build test, the sonar, the package, and of course the update. All right, so here we're using the Gradle 8.5, JDK21 image. And of course, that image is an image you can actually get in Docker Hub. So if I go here to Docker Hub, it's an image that is available right there. So, and of course, if I go to Gradle, so I can see that it has an official Docker image. So if I click here, okay, I can see, information about Gradle is right here. And if I go to tags, I would see also that they have the Gradle VBI, Gradle this, Gradle that. A lot of other ones right there. Okay. But if you go to the overview as well, you can also see some, if you come here, you can see different tags that we have here. So if I go back to tags again, I can actually filter and say I'm looking for 8.5. All right. And so you can see here that that image actually contains quite a number of vulnerabilities, right? But of course, this one is Java JDK 8, so that's not the one we need. And of course, that is over 1 year ago. No, that's not the one we use. So the one we use is this. I'm just going to copy. I'm going to copy this path, right? JDK 21. I'm going to come here and put it here. Okay. So let's see what that contains. All right. So JDK 21 is what we use. We didn't use the Jammy version. So let's just look for. All right. So this is exactly the one we used, 8.5 JDK. And you can see that that actually also contains a lot of vulnerabilities, right? So you have 4 that are very critical. You have 41 that are very high. You have medium to 126 and some low severity as 38. Okay. And that is one thing in, when you're doing DevSecOps, for example, you don't just, build your your application into a container image or a Docker image, you also want to subject the final image that you have built, to some vulnerability scanning as well. So this right here already gives us an understanding that, this contains some level of vulnerability. So it is our responsibility to scan, and perhaps in some environment as well, you can actually build your own custom based image, right? And then use that instead of relying on publicly available, images. So that's also another option that we can add. I want to explore that option of, using your own custom built images instead of, custom built image instead of relying on, the publicly available, image. And the good thing about Docker Hub is, they tell you that, this is they also perform some vulnerability scans, and then of course you have that report. So, I believe this will allow or help you to make an informed, decision. Okay, and you can see here that we even have the Alpine, version as well, but that also contains, critical, vulnerability as well, right? And it's even more than, what we have here. So this one is 41, this one is 39, right? It's a bit reduced because this is a bit high, but this one is still a bit low. But of course, vulnerability is vulnerability, right? You don't want to have any vulnerability at all, right? So we can look at that as well. Okay, so here we have the Gradle clean build X, text. This -X here, basically it's to exclude, a particular, what do I call it now? Maybe there's a particular, because normally if you don't exclude a test, then the clean build will basically actually build and then perform some test function as well. So you want to exclude that completely. So that's why you have the -X. And of course, like I will always show you, if you go to the Gradle, CLI command, I think we have the user guide here, which I think I've opened already. Okay, so this is so if we come here to, I think, core concepts, we should be able to see some of those things here. Let's look at the Gradle basics. Okay, so this gives us the Gradle structure. All right, we have the Gradle build right here. And then if I go to Gradle wrapper basics, all the information we need is actually here. So Gradle build, command line interface basics, you can see that. So Gradle, the options, the task, Gradle help. All right, you can see almost, everything right here. Okay, so if you go through the documentation, I believe you will find, all the command line reference, the -X and all those kind of things that I showed us. You're going to find everything here as well. All right, so that's basically what we have there. So, like I said, the -X is to exclude the test, so we're not performing any test. And of course, I'm going to remove this as well. So this should just work only on the merge request event. And this one, we don't have any tests really, so that's why I commented it out. But like I said, it's always good to have that in your pipeline, okay? And for the Sonar scanner stage as well, we also have this. And if you go to your Sonar Cube as well, just like I've showed us, if you go to the analysis method for this, you can select your application. So here you have Gradle, and of course it will show you, some of these information. So in your build.gradle file, you would have these ID and then property and all those kind of things in the build.gradle. So if you look at what I have here in my build.gradle, I did have, that, right? So ID SonarCube version, similar to what I have here, right? And then, of course, I have the Sonar properties as well defined here. So project key and the organization name defined right here, okay? And of course, you can use the Gradle JDK 17, and you pretty just have to do something less. So if I go back to here, I'm going to remove this build. I'm going to remove that. So let's not forget. So if I come back here, you can see that this is leaner, right, compared to the other Sonar jobs we've been looking at, because, we already have an example here, and all the properties that we need, we've stored them right here, okay? So this is leaner compared to what we have for the other jobs, right? So I'm going to remove this as well. Okay. So I'm going to remove that, and we only have Gradle Sonar here. All right, and basically everything has been configured here, the project key, the organization, and the Sonar version as well. So everything has been configured there. So what else do we need here? So we need to put our tags, don't forget. So the tag is going to be, all right, AWS and Docker. Okay, and then we also have for this one as well. All right, AWS and Docker, all right? So for the package, we need to remove this. It doesn't need the Sonar job to avoid any unnecessary stuff. So basically we'd have to remove this as well, AWS and Docker. All right, so we can see here that our Docker build is on one line, right? So that's okay. And AWS and Docker. Okay, and of course the same thing applies. It's going to trigger that that job as well, make the commit and do all of that. So that's it for the Java job. So now we can actually just push this and see what we have. So basically going to say AdService pipeline. So let's push this. All right, so we can go back to our job for this AdService. So we can come back right here. And of course, we're going to create a merge request, assign it to us, and then create a merge request event. So that should trigger the pipeline. And of course, if we come here, here we only have just 2 jobs. Okay, so now it is pending. Okay, the reason why it's pending, I believe we know why this is pending, and that is not far-fetched because we have not enabled that runner for this particular job. So we're going to come back here and say enable for this project. And all right, welcome back, guys. So we can see here that our build is completed. All right, so we have the build successful in 40 seconds. Okay, and of course, we have the Sonar job as well. That also completed, all right, in 1 minute and 38 seconds. Okay, so that's a very good one. So if I go back to the merge request, all right, and I can see the quality gate reports here. Okay, sorry, the Sonar report right here. And if I go back to my project and I check the AdService, it's already here somewhere. Okay, I think it's this one. Yeah, I think it's this one. So if I go to, sorry, it's this one there. All right, so we can see that the quality gate actually failed, but I mean, like I've always told us, we didn't set up any, any kind of quality gate webhook and a feedback, right? So it's not going to fail the pipeline, all right? So there are 4 field conditions here. If I click on merge request, I should see the new one. This is 2 minutes ago. So if I click on that, all right, I can see that, I mean, it said it passed, right? But in actual sense, there are issues, all right, with the code. But I mean, we're using the free version, so we don't have the luxury of, doing some tweaks and all that. So that's it. So I'm going to just merge this now. Let's merge and build. All right, so that should build the image for us right now. Okay, so if I go back to build and I go to pipeline, the pipeline should be triggered any moment from now. So you can see the pipeline has been triggered. And of course, we have the same, pipeline across board. So package, update the hem repo, trigger the hem repo project, all right, for security testing and all this kind of thing. So we're going to wait for this to wrap up. So once this wraps up, in the next video, we're going to be setting up our EKS cluster to, prepare that so that we can deploy, all right, to the EKS cluster from the Helm project, all right, repo. Okay, but let's wait for this to run and then I'll come back after it's done. All right, guys, so we can see that, the package job completed, the update and value completed as well. So if we go over to the Helm project now, so we can see here that we can actually merge it into the changes into the main branch here. So that's pretty much, everything that we needed to do now. So the next thing that we're going to do is to now, set up the AKS cluster, like I mentioned. All right. So that'll be the next step. So I'm going to click on merge. And so thank you so much. All right. I believe we've learned something again in today's video. In the next one, we'll look at the EKS cluster. And I believe that that's also going to open up our eyes to some interesting stuff, all right, as well. So thank you so much. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.